All right, everybody, we're going to get started shortly. Just hold on, everybody.
Where am I? It's just so beautiful. I am in heaven.
All right, everybody, what's going on? Thank you so much for coming out and hanging out. Today I really wanted to kind of put out some content to just address everything that's going on, but also, educate, opens people's minds, and also just kind of create a forum and a moment where we can talk about this stuff. So what I have here is, if you saw the graphic initially, we've got a killer conversation with my man Cousteau, Jacques Slade. You might know him from the sneaker world, but obviously he's a lot more than that. So let me get him in here real quick. And Jacques, thank you so much for your time and just being a part of this right now, man.
Absolutely, absolutely. Happy to be a part of it. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for taking action. Thank you for understanding and having and using your platform and your voice to help spread the word and give people something to rally around.
Yeah, I think that, for me, I wanted to just be able to do something, because I think that not only will this be a thing where I can learn something from you, other people can learn something from you, but I think that it's just have an open conversation and maybe give people some insight into you as a person and some of the things you've dealt with. And I think the first question I want to ask you right off the bat is just, how are you feeling? Because this has been a heavy situation, but how are you feeling, man?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. Um, the For the majority of it, I would say, you're angry and you're upset and you're hurt. But at the same time, there is a moment of hope. There is this feeling of, maybe this will be an end, or this will be a heavy blow against some of the impact that this stuff has had on, people that look like me in my life.
Do you think that I talked to some of my friends and they're like, sometimes the comment that they say is, it's the same old, it's just that phones are capturing it now. And I know that, you've obviously seen it. How There's always this idea of hope, but this moment is unlike anything we've seen. So for you, what does this moment mean from a standpoint of where can we go from here? I mean, no one says this is a good thing that George Floyd, was
Yeah,
killed.
yeah.
No one says that. But how can we use his death and his passing to really wake people up? Has it stirred something inside of you potentially?
Yeah, and I think there's a couple of things that I want to unpack there with what you just said. As much as this moment is about George Floyd, I think this moment is really unpacking the historical context of the behavior that killed George Floyd. So, people see this as one individual, and like looking at it through that lens is honestly part of the issue. But that's what we're here to talk to people about. That's what we're here to educate people about. The George Floyd is one part of a long legacy of this sort of behavior that people of color and black people in particular have had to deal with. Like the racial ties of that continue into this day. And again, a lot of people view racism as nobody's burning a cross on your front lawn, and that's correct, and that's absolutely true. But there are still policies in place. There are still laws and legislation that's being passed that still contains information, or that contains policies that were created in order to prevent black people from being able to do certain things, and those things manifest themselves in things you see that happen with George Floyd and the other people. So the for people to nail this down to just George Floyd, I would want them to look beyond that and look at the historical context and see that this powder keg has been being filled up more and more year after year and year after year. So for in me, the things that it steers up is it steers up a hope that now people get to see it. now that people see it, now they can actually do something and try to make a change. So that's the hope for me, that they see what's going on and they see that it's constant. They hear from their friends. They hear from the people that they work with. They hear from the people that they play ball with, and see that this is a legitimate concern of theirs. This isn't just a fly by night sort of thing. This is something that has been happening for a long time.
Hmm.
And my
Hmm.
hope and the hope is that this time is the last time that we have to have this sort of huge movement in order for the world and for the people to really see, like, okay, we need to do something about this.
For me, here there's plenty of stories over years, right? This is something like you said, this has been going on for generations, right? This is
Right.
systematic. This has been happening. Peop for example, I'm sure I don't even know if you want to share any stories of times you've been pulled over for the dumbest stuff just cause, and you're like, what am I doing? This stuff is generationally systematic, and people have been. The thing is that your community has been talking about this for ages, and it took 2020 and so look. We had Trayvon Martin, we had Tamir Rice, we had Eric Gardner. We aren't even talking about Breonna Taylor because there's not really. We are, but we aren't because there's not video evidence, right? George Floyd is kind of that powder keg moment. We had Ahmaud Arbery, that was also released on video, and those are the ones that, until someone can no longer refute the fact that this is in, like, there is irrefutable evidence or visual evidence of what happened. It took
Yeah.
that. It is sad that it takes that for people to even start to wake up. I mean,
Yeah.
plenty of times you're like, you don't know, when someone says you don't know what it's like for me. Now they know,
Yeah. Now they know.
to a certain
Now it's
even to a
evident.
certain, even to a sliver, right? Like, for
Yeah.
example, you know, obviously I've experienced racism, but I tell my friends, look, Asians probably have experienced 1/20th, 1/30th of the racism that blacks have had to go through. For me, it's a thing where people would sometimes be like, "Oh, why are you celebrating Black History Month?" And what I always say is that, look, Black History Month, not only is it part of American history, but you all fought the fights that my people didn't have to in order for me to have the rights and the ability for me to do what I'm able to do today. And
Yeah.
to not acknowledge that, or to not see that and understand that, and just kind of be like, "Oh, that's your issue." I don't know how. I can't really explain. I can't explain to someone else beyond
Yeah.
that, like, how they should understand that, no matter what color skin you are, African Americans, blacks have contributed to society to move it forward. And if this is that moment that helps us kind of take another step, this is still a baby step, right? We haven't even enacted
Yeah.
any type of legislation. Um, People are now focusing dollars towards these organizations, but how is, maybe there's something that, with you here and me here, that maybe you could say, I've always been curious, what is something that you would like to say to people that, look, whatever color they are, that are not specifically black, that they may not understand, coming from your perspective?
I mean, for a lot of um, the the hard thing about this is, if you have never had a bad experience with the police, you can't relate to what it's like. You don't have the same sort of fear that a person of color has when the police pull up behind them. And they don't even have to pull up behind you. They don't even have to have the lights on behind you. You can just see that they're on the freeway and there's a fear. So there's a moment when I think people have to reflect within themselves to see that it's not about you as an individual, it's about the next man, it's about the next person, and not discounting the experience that person had because you haven't had that experience. And so, like, that's a much larger and much bigger conversation. But to give them a really clear example, today that footage of the police officers in Buffalo came
Mm,
out,
mm,
where they pushed down the old man. And there's so many parts of that video, just that little clip, that explain an experience that a lot of people don't realize is happening or don't believe is happening. So one, like, if you break it down, one, they pushed down the old man. It's clear in the
mm,
video that they pushed him down, but the announcement or the tweet that was made is that the man tripped and fell. So that alone gives you a glimpse, an idea into how stories are framed for people that are going through things like that are being pushed down, that are being beaten, that are being, they're using excessive force on them, but it's being framed that the victim was at fault, as opposed to the police officer, that the two police officers, excuse me, that pushed him down. Now, that's one part of the video. The second part of the video, and now this is not a black man. This is an
Mm-hmm.
older white man, from what I could tell.
Mm-hmm.
The second part of that video is the police officer that pushed him down realizes that he's done wrong, and in that moment, he stops to assist the man that he realized that was wrong. I shouldn't have done that. But then the police officer behind him, which I'm going to assume was a more senior because they put the younger people in front, was more senior. He stopped him from, not only
Mm-hmm.
stopped him from helping him, he pushed him along to ignore what was going on. Now that is a perfect example of the sort of systematic issues that black people complain about happening in the police force. So it's not that black people hate the police, or that they don't want the police to protect the streets, or they don't want the police to live, and that they want police to die. But that gives you a visual example of how a man was wronged. There was someone there to help him, but the person behind him, the more senior person, pushed him along to ignore it and not worry about it. And the rest of the officers, seeing what happened, did nothing to assist the man that was on the ground bleeding from his ear. Now if I can't make it any clearer than that right there. So now imagine that not being on video for years,
Mm-hmm.
from not being captured on video for years, you being witness to that, children being witness to that, seeing it happening to their parents, parents and grandparents seeing that happening to their children over generations and generations, the type of scars and the type of resentment and the type of anger and frustration that those people would have towards that police force, whether you're good or bad. If you're good, say you're good, but you're ignoring this man on the ground bleeding from his ear. How then am I supposed to respond to that? Like, people don't see that, and they uh, they they take this perspective of, if I'm supporting Black Lives Matter, I'm not supporting the police force. No one from Black Lives Matter said don't support the police force. No one from Black Lives Matter said that Asians aren't important, or Hispanics aren't important, or Middle Eastern people aren't important. There's none of that is contained in the words of Black Lives Matter. But those that come from a perspective of, and I see it as not wanting to look inside and see the bias, the internal
Mm-hmm.
bias that you have, you'll use that as an excuse to be like, yeah, yeah, well, all lives matter. Of course, all lives matter. No one ever said all lives didn't matter. But but right now you see that there's something happening to a particular demographic that you have the opportunity to assist and help. But instead of looking inside yourself and saying, I'm part of the problem, you rather deflect it and being like, all lives matter. And that is a privilege that Black people don't have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I literally had a conversation with someone, a friend who called me today, much older. I'm not gonna. I guess it doesn't matter necessarily what their ethnicity is, but what in the conversation they said, why is it all Black Lives Matter? Why is it all Black Lives Matter? And they use, and for whatever reason, people have jumped on this theme of no, all lives matter. And I told them exactly what you said. This is not about saying that all lives don't matter. This is particular to a group that is being clearly affected because of a specific type of treatment, bias, racism towards them. That's why it matters. Not and then you had to talk about different instances and all and it's just like it really does sometimes baffle me. Maybe it's like you said, people aren't willing to look inside of themselves and remove themselves from the situation. Because, look, I think for you and I, we both live in a country that we are not the most privileged. Like for example, I kind of use this very first world example of, look, blacks in media, Asians in media, in mainstream American media don't have the same opportunities. It's a lot harder. You know, African Americans have created production studios and have been able to make their ways into Hollywood, but it's still with all that work, it's still not an equal playing field. And so when you even have to, like, when you come from a place not of privilege where you haven't been able to basically never be questioned or never have everything that you want, we all have to work hard, duh. But, you know, the fact is you put certain ethnicities, they all do the same exact thing, work as hard as they did, depending on where they started in this game of life. That privilege dictates where you end up. Some people can make that jump, but it's not easy. It's very hard. And so
It's not easy. It's very difficult.
It's so difficult, right? And to kind of quote unquote break the cycle. And so the privilege that we talk about is being around people that can acknowledge that privilege, and they don't need to like be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." No, it's acknowledge it, understand it, and support what is happening for yourself and for the people you love and care about. You know,
Yeah, no one is saying because you have white privilege it makes you a bad person.
yes.
Like I mean, to be fair, you did nothing to achieve the white privilege. Like
That's
I
real.
mean, like you did nothing to achieve it. Like you did nothing to receive the white privilege. It's just something that's bestowed upon you at your birth because of your parents. Like you don't have that choice. Like no one has the choice to be white or black. They don't make that decision.
Mhm.
That's just something that happens. And like I, it's not saying you're bad because you have that or you've been able to achieve things through the lens of that. Like that's okay. Like no one's discounting your work. Like they take it as a lot of people take it as an onslaught to them, as in, oh, you're saying that I didn't work hard, that I don't deserve. No one's saying you don't deserve it. No one's saying you didn't work hard. We're just saying that you have a privilege. You have an advantage. Think LeBron James and Jacques Slade. I love basketball probably just as much as LeBron James, but LeBron was born with gifts that I was not born with. He was born with privileges, with athletic privileges that I don't have. That doesn't make my work or LeBron's achievements or my achievements any less. It just means it's going to be that much harder for me to get to the NBA than it will be somebody like LeBron that's born 6'9" or whatever it is he is, and with an athletic build and super athletic parents. Like that's just he got lucky on the genetics train and was able to build that into something else. Not to say that he worked harder than I did up until high school. Well, I'm sure we both played basketball just as much as each other, but I just don't have the privileges that he has. So it's not, and that's not to take anything away from LeBron. Like people seem to think that because I say you have, or because it said you have white privilege, that it means you're less worthy of the things that you've achieved. No one is saying that. No one's saying you didn't work. No one's saying you didn't study. No one's saying you didn't do all of those things. It's just that you had the benefit of starting 10, 20, 30, 40 steps above the people that did the same amount of work that you did and weren't able to achieve the same things because they were so far behind. And there are exceptions, and people like to point to the exceptions, but the exception is not the rule.
Yeah, that
And that's an unfortunate part of it. And I get what people see that because they think it's an attack on them, but it's not an attack on you. It's an acknowledgement of a system that's in place. That's all I'm trying to help people understand.
Yeah, for people that have just jumped in the chat that are watching right now, I'm seeing, some comments like, emphasizing like all lives matter. That's why this donation is set up to the NAACP. And I think that if you missed what we talked about earlier, we are, I'm not going to beat this, with the drum, but we do know that all lives matter, but this is a situation that is specific to the Black community, and the NAACP, Black Lives Matters, and other organizations around that support with funding, because guess what? a movement and protesting helps, but you need real dollars behind this to support communities, to push that money to communities, to help them grow, to help them achieve those initiatives. So that's why we're doing this in this video and having this this conversation with Jacques. And my man, I mean, I appreciate you being here because you know you have a voice in the community, whether it's among YouTubers, creators, sneakers, and I see you doing a little tech, my man. Like all of it, like you have a voice, and it's important for us to be able to kind of bear a little bit of our soul to kind of help this progression of how we should think and treat each other.
Yeah. That people, this whole, I I just want people to take the chance and take the time to look beyond their own circumstances and put themselves in the shoes of somebody else. And just that alone should be able to get you to open up your eyes and see the reality of what some people face, of what some people feel, of what is actually happening to some people. And that should help you at least adjust the glass that we look through. We
Mm,
all look through a glass. There's a glass in front of all of us, and it's tainted with our life experiences and the things that we've gone through. But sometimes we have to adapt and look beyond what we know and look at the perspective of others. That allows us to be. I think it allows us to be better human beings and have more empathy for those that don't experience the same things that we experience.
absolutely. So, Jacques, I did want to also touch upon as we keep on talking about this. We talk about okay, these are moments, but how do we, you know, move towards change? How do we kind of advance what is happening? And you pushed for this. Was it okay? Forgive me if I said it wrong. Is it the Miles for Change initiative? Is that what you were
Miles
working?
for change.
Miles for Change.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about that, and just let people know what was behind that and just about it. Period.
Yeah, I mean, it was really just me and my buddy Josh on Saturday morning. We were trying to find a way to get people to one spread awareness and get people excited about what's going on. We're in a very unique moment, and getting people to at least start thinking about what's going on and getting active about what's going on is a step, I believe, in the right direction. So we
Hmm.
started this thing called Miles for Change, where we would donate money to a few different organizations that specialize in anti-racism and furthering the movement of ending police brutality and racism. And it just took off. It went very, very, very well. Tons of people got involved. People were DMing me. And at the end of the day, we were able to contribute $41,000 in donations
Damn.
to the different organizations to get them, to help move the movement along. So when it comes to what everyone else can do, I think one is educating yourself. Like spend time reading, learning, and educating yourself on some of the things that people have historically went through. And once and then getting a glimpse of that, thinking how the 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 impact of those things can spread for generations. Um, thinking like there's a story now, and I thought it was common knowledge, but it's not, about the Black Panthers and like Fred Hampton, how the FBI literally did things to plant in America's mind that the Black Panthers were a militant group that armed themselves against the police. That's the story that the FBI, the FBI of the country that's supposed to be protecting us all, they intentionally spread lies and propaganda. And I know this sounds like a conspiracy theory, but there's actual FBI
Factual evidence.
documents.
Yes.
It's the factual evidence to back this up that they wanted to frame the FBI as militant, and I mean the Black Panthers as militant. They literally killed a man, Fred Hampton, who was this like super charismatic leader that was trying to bring people together because they didn't want the Black Panthers working with other organizations that would help the Black cause. And so they killed him. Like, this is factual stuff. There's FBI documents. You, the person out there that thinks I'm just talking crazy right now, you can go to the FBI
Hmm.
and request these documents. The FBI that we all love and that we all support, You can go to them and get this information. It's there, clean, plain as day. But in order for you to see that and for you to read that, you have to admit that all this time you were thinking wrong about something. And that's a big step. So that's part of it. And then part of it is the feeling that you feel now, continuing that out into the world in the small moments. Right now, it's a big moment. Right now, it's cool. It's an easy lift.
Yep.
Anyone can do it. Everybody's excited. Everybody's doing it. Black Lives Matter. The end police brutality. Everybody's here. But the bigger moment is going to be when you're in that elevator and somebody makes a racist joke and you just ignore it, or you see something happening that you know is wrong to a transgender or a gay or somebody from the LGBTQ community or someone that's Asian or someone that's Middle Eastern, when you see that happening out in the street and instead of doing something, you just ignore it. Those are the moments that help change things. When you go to vote and you don't do your research on the politicians that are growing up, that's when it happens. When you vote for somebody not knowing what they vote for, and then they're in Congress or they're in the Senate and they vote against the bill that helps your family. That's when you start to make the change. So you have to make the change in those small moments in between the big moments like now. Let it filter out into your life. Make it a part of your life to help and promote change and equality for everybody, as opposed to just flat out denying it. Everything's fine. Everything's not fine, because if everything was fine, we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in today.
You know, that was beautiful what you said, because I think also, right, we know change is hard, okay? Change is hard even from doing, like, the little things in your life, from, like, okay, I'm going to wake up half an hour earlier to get my day started earlier so that I'm more effective, right? That's like, and so, you know, to your point, this is something that, to be really serious about it, it has to penetrate kind of the core of your soul. Like, what is important to you as a human? And if you can, fine, guess what? It's hard. It is going to be hard for some people to think about this every day, but what if is it once a week? Just do something different that pushes you towards how you felt today, that reinforces that thinking, right? You know, it's little, like you said, little moments, little things. I find, you know, at least from the area that I grew up in, and let's put this out because we're talking about, you know, race and race dynamics, and I think it's okay to have some of these maybe conversations that might feel uncomfortable. But, like, for example, as an Asian kid growing up, you know, at that time, there was not really much of an Asian American quote unquote identity that had kind of crystallized itself. And look, there is the Asian experience, the Hispanic experience, the Black experience, the white experience. There are different facets of it, but there's some maybe commonalities that pull you together. And so growing up in the community that I grew up, without a strong kind of Asian American sense where you had a bunch of some Asian kids and they did commune together to a certain degree, really, when I was growing up, you kind of people decided what parts of American culture resonated with them, right? So maybe it was like, for me, I kid you not, it was like 90s R&B, hip hop. That's what fed my soul. That's what made me happy. Other people, it was like, it was the grunge era of Nirvana, right? And sometimes even just your musical tastes be just this whole kind of the ethos of what lifts you, pushes you towards different sides, and sometimes you take pieces of all the different cultures that are around you. That's why LA is such an amazing place as a mixing pot. You can kind of learn things from different cultures and kind of be like, I like that, I like that, I like that. And hopefully during that integration, you learn to respect and love all of those different communities. And this is not appropriation I'm talking about. These are pieces of you that from other groups that help build your identity when you're trying to figure out your identity. And so I do find that in my community, some people may have, like, let's be honest, in the past, Asian Americans typically like to assimilate into westernized American culture because I do feel like it's the path to least resistance. You know, you want to be successful in this country per se, you follow along the rules of how the country is built. And so typically some people tended to be more towards that kind of Western society type feeling while ignoring the other cultures that make America great. So what I'm trying to say is that as a person of any color, you've got to understand, like, whether you've been there are Asian people who have lived privilege as if they have, I mean, I'll say it, and if people can get mad at me, as if they have white privilege. And they're like, oh, why should I care about this? Like I said before, black folks fought for the fact that you as an Asian person could even have privilege, more privilege than the black person who fought for your rights. And so that's why I think it's important as we talk about this to those people that think that this doesn't affect them, that are not black and are not white and are those other minorities. It does affect them, and it is. I can tell you how important it is until you feel it. I feel like, unfortunately, with COVID, Asian Americans started feeling some of the racism and heinous acts that black folks have been feeling for years, for generations, as recent as yesterday, right? And they were like, oh, what is this? This is horrible. And I'm not saying I'm happy it happened, but what I'm saying is this is what our black brothers and sisters have been dealing with for years, trying to tell you about, and have had to put up with it without anyone really listening hard enough. And so, it's just kind of my call to action to understand whatever minority group you are, there are people within those minority groups that experience privilege. I would like to encourage them to look inside themselves as well and realize, like, that privilege is because other people have fought for you to get that, and you need to support them.
Absolutely. So. It's like the Drew Brees thing. Everybody's mad at Drew Brees because of what he said. And honestly, I'm not mad at Drew Brees. I would be mad at Drew Brees from here on out, because Drew Brees just shared his perspective, and that perspective, it's a perspective of privilege, but he doesn't realize that because he doesn't think of it that way. But now that his teammates, the kids that he played ball with, the dudes that he plays ball with, have given him an opportunity, and there is argument that he should have known this beforehand, but now it's evident and clear to him. Like, you can't be saying, you can't be like, oh, I respect the flag and I love the flag. Everybody respects the flag and loves the flag. No one has ever brought this to be about the flag. It's been about police brutality. And for him to say it that way, it comes from that point of privilege of, this has never impacted me. To see you do that, I'm going to take it as disrespect to this flag that my grandfather fought for. Not once in that sentence acknowledging that my grandfather fought for that same flag, and when my grandfather came back, he couldn't go to the same school or go into the same restaurant that your grandfather went into. So how is that the same? So your perspective is from one of privilege, where you didn't have to worry about coming back to a place where you had to fight for the fact that you wanted to live in a certain neighborhood or fight to get a loan. Your grandfather didn't have to fight to get a loan. He was approved. My grandfather wasn't. And he risked his life just as much as your grandfather did. And people don't, again, it's a matter of perspective. If your privilege has not allowed you to see that, it's hard to see the bottom of your, I guess the best way I could explain it is, like, it's hard to see the bottom of your shoes if you're standing on top of them. So you never really get the chance to see. But the people that are below you, they see what's on the bottom of your shoes. They see what that's like. So that now he has the opportunity to see that. Now he has an opportunity to look through a different lens, and people have made it evidently clear. And then hopefully it opens a dialogue with some of his teammates and the people that he says he respects on his team, for him to get a better idea of what it is. So I don't cancel Drew Brees. I'm not here for canceling Drew Brees, but I am here for Drew Brees being responsible and understanding the role that he plays and the role that his privilege has played in his success and his teammates.
The cancel culture can be really, it is rooted in deep emotion. And I think what I commend you is, while some people are saying cancel Drew Brees, it's like, look, I'm going to give this guy a chance. Whether he put out his statement in a written Instagram post or looked in the camera or not, fine. That this is what's wild to me. People have been hurt for years, generations about this. You're still willing to give the dude a chance, to be like, I'll let you redeem yourself, right? This burns me to my core. And so, and that is how we should all treat people. Like, now from this point on, history will tell us what Drew Brees does with this. And
Right.
in an interesting way, because he's become this target, he has the opportunity to build the most bridges to people who may have thought like him, right? And instead of people saying cancel, 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 okay, let's work with this guy genuinely if he really is genuine about this. And this, whether it's Drew Brees or whether it's the person at your coworker at work whose eyes have maybe opened up a little more than they normally have, those are the people that you got to kind of surround and rally around. You know, one of my friends, she said her outright racist neighbors growing up stood outside for a Black Lives Matter local parade, and it made her cry about that, thinking about that, because she never thought that would happen. But those are the moments that tell people, okay, people are kind of figuring out some of this stuff up, and it's one of those things where we've always known it's there. We've always known it's there, but it's easier to not talk about it. And now we can't not talk about it. And I really do have hope that we are from this point forward that we will be able, again, it takes leadership up top. Not only does it take a grassroots effort, but when you talked about voting, you know, your vote matters. If you didn't vote last 4 years ago, I'm mad at you. If you don't vote and you're still complaining about this stuff and you don't vote this year, I'm not
Yeah.
talking to you. That's when I'm going to cancel somebody, right? Like,
Yeah.
that is worth canceling if you do not exercise your right to vote, if you believe in certain things. You know,
Yep.
I think people that may have been tuning in and may have tuned in or out and don't like the fact that people are talking about this so much. We are not attacking white folks. We are attacking the problem. You know,
Right.
the privilege may tie into that problem, but we're not saying white people are bad like that. And I think that can sometimes be misconstrued because people are like, white privilege, you are attacking how I've lived my whole life. We're actually just making a point of how you've lived your whole life. And guess what? Things change. The tides, we've seen the resistance of how generations, or even currently, we're kind of at this breaking point where there are definitely the old guard does not, it's easy. It's good to be the king, as they say. It's good to be the
Right.
king. So we're trying to, you know, through this conversation, kind of open people's minds up a little bit. Be like, hey, okay, let's take a step back and look within ourselves for the greater good. But it sounds
Absolutely.
novel, but this, I mean, this is important. It should be something that at least a little bit of it is core and fundamental to people in general.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
I
did want to
would say
ask.
so.
I did want to ask you. You know, people put out videos talking about how they felt about this. I felt like, you know, knowing you and watching your Twitter posts, I felt like you were kind of really holding a lot of things in because there's just so much going on within inside of you, like, and you just didn't want to like explode and say something irrational. But if you guys have a chance, you've got to check out, you know, go to Kusto, Kustoo, if you don't know, and watch a video that you put out that was extremely powerful and quote unquote non YouTube friendly. I don't even care, right? But it was very powerful. And so I would like you to kind of speak on that and maybe the inspiration and really how you came about doing that to illustrate what this means to you in your way.
I wanted to say something, but there's 1,000 things that I wanted to say.
Mhm.
I want to speak as a black man in this country and what that means. I want to speak as someone that's been stopped by the police for no reason. I want to speak as someone that grew up in an underprivileged neighborhood that was able to find some success through video and now lives in a predominantly white neighborhood. I want to say things as someone that's been deemed too ghetto to do certain
Mhm.
things or too urban or too black to do certain things. And I wanted to speak as someone who's deemed who's too speaks like he's white to certain people. I want to speak as a father. I want to speak as a son. I want to speak
Mm.
as an uncle.
Mm.
I want to speak. I wanted to say things in all of those voices, so to speak. And I didn't want to make a video that was 2 hours long trying to explain all of that and how this affected me. So the reason why I did the video that I did was, one, in a sense, to honor George Floyd and what he did, but also explain that range of emotion that I, as a black man, consistently go through when I see something like this, or when I walk outside, or when I go for a jog. Like, all of those things, when I hear these stories about people not getting a job or not getting a promotion,
Mm.
all of those emotions that I generally have to keep hidden inside because I don't want to look like the angry black man, and that is going to end opportunities for me. This way, this is the choice that I made to kind of express that, and um, it was the best way that I found I would be able to say everything that I wanted to say and give people um, a chance to walk away with that message.
Very impactful. There's no need to spoil it. I would just encourage people to really check it out. Um, have there, we talked a lot about, we've gone in a lot of different directions. Is there overall, people that are on this page, we've put up, a donation link, and I'm going to match up those donations up to $500. This video will live on my page as a tool, just an honest conversation that we can have. And so I hope people are encouraged to support this cause. And you know what? If this is not your cup of tea, I'm sorry. This is what creators do. We create the content we want, and you can, you get to choose whether you watch it or not. Like that, it doesn't bother me if we were quote unquote chasing numbers all the time. Well, actually, I don't know. I'm not even thinking about that. I'm just like, let's put out something that matters, right?
Yeah.
Whether it makes sense. I get tons of lashback, stick to tech, stay in your lane. I think we all do. You even as a black man about Black Lives Matter, I'm sure you got some people saying, stay in your sneaker lane. You're like, dude,
Yeah.
shut up, right? And so for us, that, we are fortunate enough to have worked our butts off to get to a point where we can put out content that is authentic, and that's what it should be about. But I'm not here about the numbers. I'm here about to have a conversation to help just advance things forward. I really appreciate you, again, opening your time to talk about this stuff. And quite honestly, I feel I haven't, from what I've seen, this is probably the most that you've kind of opened up in such intricate ways about this. And I just felt, you had stuff inside here that you could give and offer. Do you have any other kind of general thoughts about everything that's going on that maybe I haven't asked you about, or stuff that might be bubbling for you?
No, I think if anything, I just want people to be to consider. The biggest thing I can do to tell you is to consider a different perspective. Consider that the way that you think about things, or the way that you've always thought about things, may not be the real life impact that someone else is experiencing. And my hope is that people can find some common ground in that, and realize that if you end police brutality for black people through this Black Lives Matter moment, um, that's better for everyone. It's not just better for black people. So if your if your if your mantra is really that all lives matter, then someone is now telling you their life is in danger, that their life is being impacted, and you should be just as active trying to help that person if all lives matter to you. Because if you're saying all lives matter, then all lives should matter. Or are you saying all lives matter because you don't consider black lives
Mm.
as a part of that? And that's your rebuttal to that. Like, that's my biggest issue with the all lives matter moment. People are saying it as a rebuttal to Black Lives Matter, not to be inclusive, but to be exclusive of black lives.
Yes,
So
yes. All right, man. Thanks again for your time. I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate you
for
coming
sure,
out
for
here and just,
sure.
you know, giving your time, just revealing some of your soul. I thank you so much, Jacques. Like, Amazing. So,
Absolutely, man.
obviously we'll be in touch. We'll see each other whenever we see each other. But
Yes, yes.
thanks again, my man. And for everyone that is
I don't know.
watching, say what?
No, I said, all right, man. Appreciate you.
I appreciate you too. All right. So for everyone that is watching, again, check out Jacques' work, youtube.com/Cousteau, spelled Kustoo. If you like sneakers, but also just watch his latest video. I think it's one of the most impactful ones that I felt. And as I figured it out, I was like, damn. So thank you so much for that. And I'm gonna wrap this up. We're gonna kind of turn off the stream and appreciate you again. All right.
All right.
Cool. Take
Come
it
on.
easy, bro.
All right.
Cool.
Peace.
See ya.